Tony. Did you know? Yes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Bass, and today we are playing Project Zomboid. I'm motivated to keep on this series with you guys because I got a lot of good feedback from the previous video, the first video I made of this game. I appreciate every single one of you that tuned into that video, who liked it, who commented on it, who shared it. I appreciate it a ton. I cannot thank you enough. I'm sure I'll say it again at some point. But yeah, I fell in love with the game. I got my feet wet, as it were, like just kind of figuring it out and understanding how the mechanics work and whatnot. But it's quite difficult, and it seems like it'd be right up my alley as far as an apocalypse game goes, a zombie game goes. So thank you so much for the support on that last video. I'm not going to spiel too much in this intro here, so bear with me. I just want to give a quick shout out to Simiel Black. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He dropped a comment basically asking if I wanted any tips or tricks or whatever, and well, I asked him if there's anything that he could help me with as far as long term goes, and told me some different things, like the farmhouses, rivers, having fish for protein later on. Because eventually we will run out of electricity and a means to get ourselves water using electricity. So we're going to have to figure out other means of survival, which we're going to try and do in this episode. But yeah, I'm super excited, super stoked to continue this series with you guys. But without further ado, let's jump into this. It was day 3 of my survival. We had things to do, things that needed to get done to make it last. We would start with trying to find the essentials. It wasn't long before at the beginning of my stroll I ran into the undead. More neighbors to unfortunately, or fortunately, dispatch of. I wasn't too sure what I was looking for, but I began re-looking in places I had already been just to make sure that I had everything out of there that was useful, all the while dispatching of the undead along the way. It was an ongoing struggle knowing that my character was constantly thirsty. Breaking into homes was a regular for me to drink just a little bit of water and bandage myself from the zombie attacks that I had sustained the day before. In order to keep my bones nice and strong, I would drink whole milk as much as I could. By this point, I'd already drank 3 gallons of milk just in my travels around the neighborhood. I was getting yoked. It's always a pleasure when the house I break into has pickles as well. After nomming some delicious pickles, I would continue my search outside, trying to find the useful items I had talked about earlier. Like I said, I wasn't really sure what I was looking for, but I felt like when I found it, I would know it's what I would need. I ran into a cowboy fella who tried to take me out for the rodeo. I said no. I also discovered that I could kind of cheese some of the zombies with the fence. If I just got them to alley-oop over them, I could bust out their brains quite easily. I noticed in this garage there was a slight red tint item in there that I hadn't seen before. Once inside, I discovered that it was a generator. This had to have been an item that is needed for long-term survival. I did realize in my primitive brain that the electricity wouldn't always stay on, so we would need this. Once I was on the mindset of long-term survival, I also discovered that I could cut down trees. If I can cut down trees, I might be able to make my own structures. As I discovered in the crafting menu, I can. With the logs from these trees, I would be able to craft wooden walls, crates, boxes. With this in mind, I would also need to level up my carpentry skill, which was a bit low at the moment, so I needed to find things to dismantle. I found out that this might be the quickest way to actually level up the skill, other than getting lucky and watching one of the skill shows on the television. With the dismantling leveling up my carpentry skill in mind, I was lucky enough to stumble across a nice long fence on the outskirts of the cul-de-sac, away from many of the zombies. I took advantage of it. After working my butt up to get the skill up, I decided to drink some more whole milk, because that's good for you, and in the apocalypse, it's always bulking season. Not long after consuming a metric ton of milk, my mind was telling me I needed to get a better understanding of my surroundings. We were still exploring at this point. It was only the evening of day 3. Once I hopped into school, I noticed that a lot of the students had been trapped in there and become zombies themselves. I would need a dispatch of them if I was to thoroughly search the school for perhaps maybe some skill books. At least that's what my mind was telling me that I needed to find. After discovering that there was no loot to be had and clearing out the school, it was time to move on. While partaking in another thirst-quenching mission, the TV was on, and I noticed the news was giving valuable information about what was actually going on in the world. I decided to take a listen and take in a bit of lore from this game, as it was quite immersive. And I'm getting lost in this game the more I stay in it. After guzzling down some water, I headed across the street, looked through a window, and found that there was a bookshelf full of books. Tried to get in. Both of the front windows were locked. I tried the side window. Once open, I hopped in, and I set off my first alarm. I needed to vacate the area quickly, otherwise I'd be swarmed with the horde. I was lucky enough to make it back to my house alive, where I sat in for another skill show to level up some cooking skill. It was 4th of July, and it was time I got building these walls. No more getting sidetracked. I figured out rather quickly how to put them down and place them. However, I needed planks and nails to actually build them. The hardest part was getting the planks. That's what I needed the trees for. I got to chopping even more trees in my backyard, so I could saw down the logs and the planks that I would need for construction of these walls. It seems I would be making a lot of noise because it attracted the neighbors. A lot of them. I would need a dispatch of this horde if I wanted to continue my construction. I tried my best to lure them to me without making too much noise so I wouldn't attract other hordes or other neighbors in the vicinity. Once I got them in a nice streamline around the building, it was time to act. Take them out one at a time, as best as I could without getting injured. I continued to snake the horde around the house, thinning them out with each turn. At long last, it was just the final few, and once dispatched, I could get back to building my walls, and hopefully a long-term safe house to go on into the future, alive, and not a brain-munching monster. I was putting in the work, laying down the foundations of long-lasting survival, all the while getting thirsty and thirstier, because I decided to choose an attribute that is seen where water is a necessity. With all the tree chopping I was doing, I broke my hatchet. This was unfortunate because not only was it a tool for cutting down trees, it was also my primary melee weapon. So I found the sickle instead, and it's been doing the good work, Soviet style. I did have to get back to the fire station because I do recall seeing a fire axe there. I just couldn't carry it at the time. And while there, I might as well stock up on the rest of the medical supplies I might need. After heading back to the house, I decided to head to a corner store, a part of the strip mall, to stock up on some food, where I ended up finding a bunch of brochure maps. I would discover reading these maps would tell me where specific items were in my area, as well as unlocking different sections around the world that I could view on the map, which is going to be very helpful in the future as I branch out to different areas. So I decided to spam all of these maps and read them. The strip mall had a medical clinic where the town doctor resided. I ended up finding her and putting her out of her misery. After leaving the strip mall, I headed across the street to find a state trooper car. I decided to use this to get back to my house, while also finding out that you could kill zombies with it. I stopped in at a house a few streets over from mine for another water break, as my character's severely thirsty all the time. I discovered that there was another survivor. Someone like me, a soldier, that didn't make it. This made the game a little more eerie for me at this point in time, and I wondered if I would actually make it out of here alive. I couldn't let doubt set in, however. As I began to dispatch more of the zombies with my new fire axe, I discovered I was pretty much unstoppable with this thing, and it began to brighten my mood a bit. With the mood lifted, it was back to work. Steadily working through the night, I continued construction on the wall outside my home. At this point, I had enough planks stacked up to where I should be able to finish at least the backyard portion. However, these were only the templates. I would need more planks to actually build the walls themselves. With that knowledge, I headed back inside to get a drink of water, and as I began to hear on the radio I brought inside from the neighbors more information on the world and what was going on. This virus was spreading. It wasn't just my town, it was cities, family members affected. I couldn't let this get to my head. As construction continued outside the next morning, I would be met with a familiar sound. A helicopter? Were they here to help me? Was it the army? Or somebody who was curious to what was going on here? I wasn't sure, but I paid it no mind and continued to work. As I carried on with my day, I noticed the helicopter was just hovering around me and my house. It began to attract the undead to my position, and this was not good. If this pilot was trying to help me, they most certainly were failing. After almost getting a death hickey from one of the neighbors, I decided it was time to get moving. I couldn't stay in one spot with this noise going on. I also thought this would be a perfect opportunity to use my firearm, at least get used to using my rifle. And I would first have to reload it in order to actually use it. After reloading and pulling the trigger for the first time, I noticed it was quite effective against the undead. One-shot kills. To evade the heli, I decided to go to a nearby church. Maybe here I could find some kind of safety. I was quickly proved wrong. I discovered the dead had taken over his house. You might call this sacrilegious, me blowing heads in the Lord's church, but I really don't think he'd mind at this point. After zombie swarming in the church, I decided to get an actual move on down the road, where I was met up with more hordes. I put this rifle to action and took them out one by one, leveling up my shooting and my reloading. I needed to keep moving though, I was getting swarmed. I wasn't really sure where to go or what to do at this point or how long this event would last. All I could do was hold off the undead, fire away shot after shot. I had the ammo to spare. However, in my carelessness, one of the deadheads had the munchies on me. I was bleeding out fast, and I ran out of bandages. Is this it? Is this how I die? Blood loss? I can't die like this. I won't die like this.